Yo, what's going on, people? It's your boy Ape Hancho, and this is Cases Season 1, Episode 4, the Myron Yarde case, aka MDot from 814.
I got bars that'll make a Donny lose pose. Standing in your cheery jeans, but you move forward. Listen, niggas know that we got this. Told me with them chopsticks. It's the last year, I'm all going. I'm cold, fam, so I'm slowing.
Instantly hard. Instantly hard.
Myron Yarde, age 17, more known by his alias MDot, was a UK drill rapper out of the set 814. In my previous video, we looked into the case of Leandro Osmeki, aka Shoki, who was also a member of 814. As previously explained, 814 is a break-off set from the Ghetto Boys out of South London, and the group had broken off at some point in the past 10 years. Although not as big as Shoki when it came to collaborations, MDot was still a heavy hitter in the UK drill scene, with people seeing him as a massive influence to UK drill music, many people seeing him as the leader of 814 when it came to music. MDot's videos on YouTube would gain a respectable amount of views, but unfortunately never reaching 1 million, as this was a few years ago, and drill still being somewhat underground. Whereas if we look at the climate of drill today, the videos would have easily had 1 million views, if not more, per video. MDot's murder was covered on the Channel 5's Gangland Turf War, and after this video you should go check it out for more information surrounding his death. So, the case of MDot starts on the 3rd of April 2016, where police were called at 7:41 PM to reports of an altercation between approximately 6 to 10 male teenagers in New Cross Road. Officers attended and found MDot with stab wounds in nearby Camplin Street. Paramedics tried to save him at the scene, and he was treated by the London's Air Ambulance Service, but was pronounced dead at 9:04 PM shortly after arriving at King's College Hospital. A post-mortem examination at Greenwich Mortuary on Monday 4th of April 2016 gave the cause of his death as a stab wound. Again, backing up how influential MDot really was for his age of only 17 years old, Peckham rapper Giggs would pay tribute on Instagram saying, "Proper sad to say, rip Myron, aka MDot, as I was just talking to this kid just yesterday, telling him how good his and his friends' music is, and to keep working hard. My prayers and thoughts go out to his family." There's loads of opportunities out there for us street dudes now, whether it's music, working a camera, being a comedian, etc. These are things we never knew we had access to before, so now that we know we can make big things happen, and we've got options, let's try and live a little bit better amongst each other and try to be great. Rest in peace. Two teenagers aged 15 and 16 were taken into custody in connection with the incident and were arrested near the scene. Scotland Yard had said at the time the fatal stabbing may have been related to an earlier incident in which a gang of youths were seen in a heated argument while carrying knives. And between the 3rd and the 9th of April 2016, police would go on and arrest a total of 5 male teenagers in connection with MDot's murder. One 15-year-old boy appeared at Bromley Youth Court on Saturday the 9th of April 2016, where he was charged with murder. The defendant, who at the time couldn't be named because of his age, remained in custody until his next appearance at the Old Bailey on April 11th, 2016. And at that Old Bailey hearing, he wore a blue jumper and only spoke to confirm his name. Judge Nicholas Hillard QC set a provisional date of the 3rd of October 2016 for a trial that could last up to 4 weeks. And the 15-year-old was next to appear in court for a plea and case management hearing on the 28th of June. Now, it should be noted that in this case, I do know who the 15-year-old is, but because he turns 16 when his name gets revealed, there is another 16-year-old, so at this time, I actually don't know who the 15-year-old is. A 16-year-old boy and a 19-year-old man were arrested on suspicion of murder on the 7th of April 2016, and they had been bailed pending further inquiries. A second 16-year-old boy previously arrested on April the 3rd, 2016 on suspicion of murder was bailed to return to police on a date in late May. And finally, a 15-year-old boy who was also arrested on suspicion of murder was bailed to return in mid-May. On the 10th of April 2016, at around 7 PM, detectives would issue a fresh appeal for information surrounding his murder while at the scene of the crime. Although officers had spoken to many people in the area, they were keen to speak with others who had witnessed the stabbing or moments leading up to it and hadn't come forward yet. Detective Chief Inspector Rebecca Reeves, who was leading the investigation, said, "A week on from Myron's murder, detectives will be returning to the area to speak to local people. The support we've had from the local community and Myron's family has been outstanding, and I would like to thank everyone who has already spoken to us and provided vital information. We've made 5 arrests so far, which I previously stated, and I've had many lines of inquiry inquiries that we are following, so I'd reiterate all of our previous appeals for witnesses and anyone with information about Myron's death to come forward. Witnesses have told us some of the young men who were present during the disorder arrived and left on bikes. Were you there? Did you see them? In addition, I'm interested in any information concerning a white or light coloured car that was seen travelling away from the scene shortly after the murder. The vehicle seems to have headed north along Camplin Street away from New Cross Gate, but it's not clear whether this car left the area straight away. Then, between the 10th and the 14th of April 2016, police would go on to charge an 18-year-old by the name Fowles Richard, who couldn't be named at the time due to legal reasons, with murder, and they were both to appear at Bromley Magistrates Court on the 15th of April 2016. There's currently no information surrounding court dates for Fowles Richard and the 16-year-old boy after this, but it is known that they would stand trial with the 15-year-old boy at the Old Bailey in October of 2016. Two 31-year-olds, Jamie Kennedy and Charlotte Edmonds, were arrested and charged with perverting the course of justice sometime after, and they would also stand trial at the Old Bailey with a group of teenagers in October. So, with the trial starting on the 5th of October, the court had heard that MDot was stabbed in a brawl that was started by a bike theft earlier on in the day in an ongoing turf war. It should be noted that Shoki was supposed to give evidence in court, but he was unfortunately stabbed to death in August of 2016, which we had covered in the previous episode. Opening the trial, prosecutor Lisa Wilding QC told the court New Cross Road was a notional and physical divide between different groups in that part of the borough. The court had heard a group of Myron's friends had crossed that divide and entered rival territory, an area known among the youths as Monson, where one of them had been stabbed before. During this trip to get a pizza from Domino's, there was a confrontation which led to Myron's bike that one of his friends had borrowed being stolen. The fight that left Myron stabbed 5 times, severing his femoral artery and leaving him collapsed on the street where Fowles Richards lived, happened later that day when he and his friends returned to the area to retrieve the stolen bike. The prosecution would go on to explain this in more depth by saying the events in Camplin Street were the brutal culmination of matters that had begun a couple of hours earlier that day and arose partly from the theft of a bicycle. However, that itself reflects an ongoing tension between groups of youths who lived in different but neighbouring parts of New Cross. The alleged killers were from an area of New Cross known as Monson, while Myron and his friends were from another area very close by. Miss Wilding said Myron's friend Leandro Osmecki, also known as Shoki, crossed the divide when he went to Domino's to order a pizza. It would be at this point he was followed from the pizza shop to a nearby block of flats by Monson teens who stole Myron's bike. Shoki posted pictures from the block, which was viewed as a violation of Monson territory. Talking of the further fight, which MDot had been stabbed, the prosecution then went on to say, "You may think that it was no accident that the fight ended up on Camplin Street." The prosecution suggests that one of the young teenagers, in effect, lured the group to Camplin Street, where he knew he would find ready assistance and backup. One of the 16-year-olds was heard to taunt MDot when Richards turned up to help them, saying, "What you going to do? My orders are here now." Witness testimony describes 2 of the defendants cornering MDot while he was backed up against the wall, and all 3 were seen with a flick knife and 2 kitchen knives. The jury would hear conflicting evidence as to whether MDot himself was armed in the fight, with some saying he was armed with a machete, while others saying he wasn't, and it should be noted that a machete was never found in this case. 2 of MDot's friends had run off during the altercation, but his remaining friend, who had tried to stop the killing, said he had tried to lash out towards Richards before being stabbed. One of the 16-year-old defendants told a friend, "I think I've killed him," when he learnt of MDot's injuries through Snapchat messages, and described how when he had stabbed him, it felt like it was doing it in air, and it went straight through his victim, hitting the wall behind, and had bent the knife. 2 of the defendants came out of the fight without suffering so much as a scratch. The other suffered a minor head wound, roughly the size of a £2 coin, which healed in days. Miss Wilding added, "It is clear that the events on Camplin Street were fast, terrifying and shocking, both for participants and witnesses. Each witness noticed different things and had different perspectives. What is clear though is that the moment he was fatally stabbed, Myron Yarde quite literally had his back against the wall. He was effectively helpless, whether he had a weapon or not. Whoever caused the fatal injury to his right leg, or joined in on the assault upon his left leg, these 3 defendants joined together in an assault." Jurors had news of the stabbing spread quickly on Snapchat, and one of the alleged killers, then just 15, said, "Why the F did he have come to Monson?" One of the knives used in the killing was found wrapped in a t-shirt and dumped in a bin in a garden on Camplin Street. The 16-year-old and the 15-year-old, who is now 16, persuaded their co-defendants, couple Charlotte Edmonds and Jamie Kennedy, to dispose of the knife in their bin. The couple had ran a crack den from their home that they shared in Dubbeney Tower, Bowich in Deptford, and the younger defendants were friends with Kennedy's 15-year-old daughter. When he was arrested on 7th of April 2016, one of the 16-year-olds had told officers, "You lot have done your homework. Some people deserve to die." The trial would go on until the 7th of December 2016, with Fowles Richard and the two youths being acquitted of murder but being found guilty of manslaughter after their trial at the Old Bailey. It should be noted throughout the trial, Fowles Richards had told the jurors he was not at the scene and a witness was mistaken. However, a red and white kitchen knife was found in his back garden which had MDot's blood on it, and the 15-year-old had told jurors that he had stabbed MDot in self-defense, causing the fatal stab wound, and that Richards had stabbed him 4 times, with the other 16-year-old not giving evidence. Charlotte Edmonds and Jamie Kennedy were convicted of perverting the course of justice. Adjourning sentencing until January 13th at 2 p.m, Judge Nicholas Cook QC said, "We all know that knife crime takes place in London. Too many young men lose their lives this way. Any judge who sits here is aware of that. It has to stop." Then, on January the 13th, 2017, the 3 teenagers, Fowles Richards, age 19, and the 2 16-year-olds who are now named as Junior Lucello Mami and Lucas Risch, were sentenced to a total of 37 years in jail, with Lucello Mami being sentenced to 12 years, Fowles Richards being sentenced to 13 years, Risch being sentenced to 12 years, plus another 2 years for perverting the course of justice to run concurrently, and Charlotte Edmonds and Jamie Kennedy were each jailed for 2 years and 3 months for their part in concealing the weapon, which was never found. And that is the Myron Yarde case, aka MDot, from 814. And I just want to say my condolences are with his family and friends at this current time. Now again, with the MDot case along with the Shoki case, within the space of only a few months they had sadly both passed away, and both being upcoming drill rappers, they were getting co-signs from a lot of artists, and in the case of Shoki, he had a lot of collaborations, and I think moving forward, MDot and Shoki would have gone on to make some big music, and they would have gone on to have some big collaborations, because as Giggs stated before, he's shown interest in MDot, and getting a collaboration with Giggs, being only 17, maybe 18 at the time when he would have got the collaboration, would have been something big for MDot. Now, to put it into perspective, that you guys that maybe don't know who MDot is, or wasn't listening to MDot back in the day, or maybe wasn't listening to drill back in the day, it would be as if like Digga D had sadly passed away. Now, imagine if Digga D died, right? It would be the same impact that Digga D's had on drill, and the same influence that he's had on drill. Well, that was MDot and Shoki back in the day. So imagine somebody like a Digga D dying, and it just goes to show you like how much potential is unfortunately lost when somebody like that dies. But if you like this series, give the video a thumbs up. Let me know what you guys think of this in the comment section below. And if you want the latest drill, street and music news out of the UK, be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. It's been your boy 8 Poncho, and I'm out.